In this video, I am going to share with you a step-by-step pattern for making these cute amigurumi tomatoes, which makes a good add-on for your kids' play food. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to DIY Crafts. For this project, I am using 4-ply 100% cotton yarn along with a crochet hook of size 3 mm. Now let us begin by making the stem of a tomato. So for this I am leaving a long tail end and then making a slip knot. Now let's start crocheting. Wrap the tail end around the needle as shown in the video. Now you will have 2 loops on the hook, then chain 1. Again wrap the tail end and make 1 more chain, and continue this until you have some 7 to 8 stitches, or according to your wish you can make how much stem you wanted to make. So after you get the desired height of the stem, make chain 1 and then trim the excess thread. You can put a count. I think I have done some 7 to 8 stitches here. Then chain 1 and then trim the excess thread. Now put this aside and let's start making the sepal of the tomato. Again with the green color yarn, begin with the magic ring. So leave a small tail end in your left hand and wrap it around your finger as shown in the video. Now insert your needle into the loop and then pull out the thread from that loop. Now adjust the center and then make chain 1. Now make chain 2, so which makes a total of 3 chains. That's chain 2 and chain 3. Now skip the first chain from the hook and then into the next chain make 1 slip stitch. So insert your needle into the chain and draw the yarn through both the loops on the hook, and into the next stitch make a single stitch. So drop a loop and then make a single stitch. So this gives the first part or first point of the sepal, and then make a slip stitch into the center. Now we are going to repeat this pattern for 4 more times, so total we will get 5 points. So make chain 3, skip 1 chain from the hook and into the next chain make 1 slip stitch, and into the last chain make 1 single stitch, and then make a slip stitch into the center. This gives you the second point. Now let's start making the third point. So chain 3 and again the same pattern, skip 1 chain from the hook and then make 1 slip stitch, and into the next stitch make 1 single stitch, again a slip stitch into the center, and now repeat this for 2 more times. Now after making all the 5 points for the sepal, make chain 1 and then trim the excess thread. You can just leave a small tail end, no need of making a big tail end. Now fasten off, and now into this center hole, that is the magic ring, insert your stem as shown in the video and then close the magic ring. So this join helps us to secure both the sepal part and the stem part. And to secure this join, I am going to make few knots on the back side of the sepal as shown in the video. Just a couple of knots to ensure that the join is nice and secure so that they won't fall apart. Once it's done, do not trim the excess threads because we are going to use the same threads to attach it to the base of the tomato. And so put this aside and let's start making the base of the tomato. For this I am using a red color yarn, again the same cotton yarn and a 3 mm crochet hook, and for this begin with a slip magic ring, adjust the circle center, and then let's start making the first row. Chain 1, and for the first row begin with 6 single crochet stitches in the center. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So once you have got all the 6 stitches in the center, close the magic ring by pulling the starting tail end, and this closes your magic center. And now let's start making the first row. You don't have to completely close the magic ring. Even if there is a small gap, it's also fine, because we have to add the stem in this center. Actually, I forgot the point and I pulled it completely, and that's why I'm just making it a little loose now. Okay, so don't pull it the magic ring. Even if you pull, that's okay. We can use a tapestry needle to attach the both. And for the second row, begin with one single crochet stitch on the top of the first stitch, and then put a stitch marker into this stitch to mark the beginning of the second row. So for the pattern, we have to make 2 single crochet stitches into the first stitch, as we have already made the first one. Now I have done the second single crochet stitch into the same stitch. So that's a single crochet increase. Now into the second stitch, I am making one more single crochet increase, that is 2 single crochet stitches into the same stitch, and then single stitch increase in the third stitch, and repeat this for the last 3 stitches as well. So this is an increase in the fourth stitch, and then an increase in the fifth stitch, and the last increase into the sixth stitch. So as we have 6 increases, by the end of the second row, you will have 12 single crochet stitches and you will have a nice round shape. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the third round. For this, make one single crochet stitch on the top of the first stitch and put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of the third row. And one stitch is done, and now into the next stitch, make a single crochet increase, that is 2 single crochet stitches into the same stitch. So one stitch and increase. This is the set. We have to repeat this set for 6 times. So already we have completed the first one, and here I am doing the second one. And now repeat this pattern for remaining 4 more times until you reach the starting point. And by the end of the third row, you will have 18 single crochet stitches. Make sure you count after completing each and every row, so that you will have exact number of stitches as shared in the pattern. Now remove the stitch marker, make one single crochet stitch and then put the stitch marker back in onto the top of this first stitch, and this marks the beginning of fourth row. And into the next stitch, make one more single stitch. So you have 2 single stitches, and then into the next stitch, make one increase. So here for the fourth row, this is the set we have to repeat 6 times. So this is the second set, the second single stitch, and then an increase. And repeat this 4 more times throughout the row until you reach the starting stitch. And here I am making the last increase, and this completes the fourth row with 24 single crochet stitches. And here you can see the shape. It might look a little bit of a hexagon, but that's okay. By the end of the project, it will look like a circle. That's because of the positions of increases. And row 5, make one single stitch and then make 2 more single crochet stitches. So that's the second one and then the third one. So after 3 single stitches, into the next stitch, make one increase. And now we are going to repeat this pattern of 3 single stitch and increase throughout the row for 5 more times. So now I am making the last increase of the 5th row, and by the end of the 5th row you will have 30 single crochet stitches, and this is how the shape looks like. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 6th row. Make one single stitch and then put the stitch marker back into this new stitch to mark the beginning of the 6th row. Now make 3 more single crochet stitches, so which makes a total of 4. So that's the second one, that's the third single stitch, and then the 4th single stitch. So that's 4 single stitches, and then into the next stitch make an increase. That's 2 single crochet stitches into the same stitch. And now we are going to repeat this set of 4 single stitches and increase throughout the row. So here I am making the last increase of the 6th row, and this completes my 6th row with 36 single crochet stitches. So here this is the shape. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making row 7. So begin with one single stitch, put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of the 7th row, and now make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row. So as we are not using any kind of increases, we are just making one single stitch over each and every stitch. We will have 36 single stitches in our 7th row as well. Just continue throughout until you reach the starting point. So this completes the 7th row with 36 single stitches. Remove the stitch marker and then let's start making the 8th row. For this, begin with one single stitch and put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of 8th row. Now make 4 more single stitches, which makes a total of 5. So this is the third one, 4, and then the 5th single stitch. Now into the next stitch, make an increase. Now repeat this pattern of 5 single stitches and increase throughout the row until you reach the starting point. Now here I am making the last increase of the 6th set in 8th row, and by the end of this row you will have 42 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making 9th row. Make one single stitch and put the stitch marker back. Here did you notice I forgot to put the stitch marker in the first stitch. So here it's very difficult if you have missed any stitch or count. So it's mandatory to realize and put back your stitch marker as soon as you start your work, okay, for each and every row. Now repeat this same pattern from row 9 to row 11, that is one single stitch in each and every stitch. So in each row you will have 42 single stitches, and by the end of the 11th row this is how the shape of the tomato looks like. Now let's add this stem and sepal to the shape. You can just use a tapestry needle or you can use your crochet hook and pull all those stems at a time into the project. Just you need to put a little strength and you can pull all those threads at a time into the project. Now attach these threads to the magic ring thread of the tomato to make a nice and secure join between these two. You don't have to trim those threads or weave in those ends, as we'll put the stuffing. You can just leave it in there. Now for the 12th row, remove the stitch marker and let's start making it. Begin with one single stitch and put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of 12th row, and then make 4 more single stitches. So we'll have total of 5 stitches. So that's the second one, third, 4 and 5. After 5 single stitches into the next stitch, we will make an invisible decrease. So insert the needle into the front loops of both the stitches and then make a single stitch, and that will make a decrease. Now we are going to repeat this pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and again an invisible decrease. So insert your needle into front loops of both the stitches, drop a loop and then make a single stitch, and repeat this pattern for 4 more times throughout the row until you reach the starting point. And here I am making the last invisible decrease of the 12th row. So insert your needle into front loops of next 2 stitches, drop a loop and then make a single stitch, and this completes your 12th row with 36 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the row 13. Make one single stitch and then put the stitch marker back, and this marks the beginning of 13th row. So that's one single stitch, then this one is the second single stitch. Now the third single stitch and then the fourth single stitch. So after making 4 single stitches, now we are going to make an invisible decrease. So just make one invisible decrease, and now we are going to repeat this pattern of 4 single stitches and one invisible decrease throughout the row until you reach the starting point, or you can even say you have to repeat the pattern for 6 times in the entire row. And then make a slip stitch, and this completes your 13th row with 30 single crochet stitches. And see, the shape is slowly decreasing while we are making the decreases. Now remove the stitch marker, and for the 14th row, begin with one single stitch, put the stitch marker back, and this marks the beginning of 14th row. And for the 14th row, make one single stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row, as we are not making any increases and also we are not doing any decreases. So the count will remain the same by the end of the 14th row also. That is, you will have 30 single crochet stitches. And this completes your 14th row. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making row 15. Make one single stitch, put the stitch marker back, and according to the pattern we have 3 single stitches. So we have already done the first one and then the second, now the third single stitch. So after 3 single stitches, make one invisible decrease. And now we are going to repeat this pattern of 3 single stitches and 1 decrease throughout the row for total 6 times. So this is the second repetition. So 3 single stitches and invisible decrease, and repeat this for 4 more times until you reach the starting stitch. So here we are making the last invisible decrease, and this completes your 15th row with 24 single crochet stitches. And slowly the opening of this circle is getting closer with the added number of decreases for each row. Now let's start making 16th row. Make one single stitch and put the stitch marker back, and now into the next stitch make another single crochet stitch, which means we have 2 single crochet stitches in 16th row, and then into the next 2 stitches make one invisible decrease. And repeat this pattern of 2 single crochet stitches and 1 invisible decrease throughout the row for 6 times. So this is the second repetition, that's the invisible decrease. And then repeat this pattern 4 more times until you reach the starting point. And by the end of the row 16, you will have 18 single crochet stitches. This is how the shape looks like after completing 16 rows. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making 17th row with one single stitch. Again put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of 17th row. And now after completing this first single stitch, in the next stitch make one invisible decrease. Again one single stitch and one invisible decrease, that's the second repetition. And repeat this for 4 more times throughout the row. So by the end of the 17th row, you will have 12 single crochet stitches. So stop your work after completing this row, and then let's add the stuffing to the toy. Take a good amount of fiber fill and start filling into the tomato, starting from the edges, and then slowly start stuffing into the center as well. Make sure you shouldn't overstuff, and at the same time it shouldn't understuff. Either of it will ruin the shape of your toy. So once you are sure that you have enough stuffing into the project, then let's continue to make the last row for the tomato. So begin by making a invisible decrease. In the last row we have 6 invisible decreases. So that's the first invisible decrease. So after putting the stuffing, it will be little challenging to complete your project. So carefully and with a little bit of patience, let's complete this row. So that's the second invisible decrease, and then this one is the third invisible decrease. Now next we have the fourth invisible decrease, then fifth invisible decrease, and finally the last 6th invisible decrease. And now once all the stitches are done, remove the stitch marker. So this completes the last row with 6 stitches. So remove the stitch marker, make one invisible decrease, make one slip stitch into the next stitch, then chain one and trim the excess thread by leaving a little long tail end. Just 6 inches to 8 inches is good enough. Now after completing the last step, adjust the stuffing to give that nice round shape for your tomato. Now with the help of a tapestry needle, insert the tail end into the tapestry needle and then pass this tail end through the front loops of all the 6 stitches in the last row. So you can put a count on it. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and then gently pull the tail end to close the opening at the last. Now into the next stitch, make one knot into that stitch to secure your project, and then if you want to have a round shape of a tomato, you don't have to pull it tightly. If you wanted to have a small dent on the bottom, then you have to pull this thread tightly after pulling it on the top of the project. So insert the needle from the center till the top from the magic ring. Now pull it up gently. See, you can see the small dent on the bottom, and if you wanted a bigger dent, now pull it tightly and then make this knot to secure your dent at the bottom. If you want it in a round shape, you don't have to pull this harder. So now after pulling it, make a last knot into any of the stitches in your first row, just a small knot on the top of the project, and then again insert the thread back into the stuffing. Pass the needle through the stuffing across your project some couple of times to make sure that the tail end is nicely hidden and secured, and then you can trim the excess thread close to the project. Now once again you can adjust the stuffing. If you want, you can add some facial features to the project. As I'm planning it for a kids play food, I'm not adding any kind of eyes or facial features to the project. But if you wish, you can add or you can embroider the facial features. I'm using a glue gun to give the finishings to the project. Just attach the sepal to the tomato as shown in the video. And that's it, your Amigurumi tomato is now ready. I hope you all enjoyed watching this tutorial. Do give this pattern a try and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And do not forget to share how your kids have felt after you completed this project. The written pattern for this project is given in the description. Do check it out. See you all in the next video. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, share it and subscribe to DIY Crafts.